Okay, welcome out to our video series today. This is, I guess one of those Monday morning mailbag type questions where I got a request from one of my students, one of the team members. His name is Christian, and he wants some clarity on a few things. We're going to talk about it. We're going to start with why today. Christian sent me this email, and he said, and let's zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit. He said, here's my question that hopefully will become a video. You're a pro, an inspiring individual, seasoned trader, got a solid background behind you. I like to see people like you as a benchmark. You do your investments a certain way. For example, Matt does his way, Gino his, Steve Wong his, and so on. Many videos out there focus on one strategy, another strategy, and then another. They get to the fine details, and the big picture is lost. At least for me, maybe to other beginners out there as well. Where do these strategies connect? Do they indeed connect at a certain point? How and when in space and time? I really miss the big picture sometimes. I've read lots about diversification versus focus. Buffett and Kiyosaki both believe in focus. They are a benchmark for me too. Others believe in diversification. So here's something that I'd love to see a video about: asset allocation strategy. Maybe it can turn into a series at Tackle Trading, and Christian, I do think it probably can. How pros tackle their investment. Pros would share their asset allocation strategies, explaining why they focus or diversify, if they consider themselves conservatives, bold, etc. Would you share your asset allocation strategy with all the disclaimers and stuff, and X and Y? And for example, 80% of my portfolio in this, cash flow, or 20% left in other stuff, potentially, right? So he's asking for some clarity there, like 10% of this or 30% of this, and so on and so forth. 70% that paid dividends. Did I make myself clear? This is one thing I'm always thinking about: the big picture. All the classes and readings never pointed me a direction so far. Thanks for this opportunity. Now, thank you, Christian, for the question. I think it actually is a great one, and a very important one, because we have to first to be able to do that, by the way, because that is the what's and the how's. There's a great book by a guy named Simon Sinek that I absolutely love. There's also a TED Talk by Simon Sinek, and he came up with this concept called the golden circle. Okay, basically how great leaders start with why, not the hows, not the whats. See, in trading, how or what is less important than why. We need to never, ever, ever, ever forget that. Why are we doing this in the first place? Is it control? Is it peace of mind? Is it cash flow? Are you trying to, not be beholden to Wall Street or traditional investment? Are you trying to step out on your own and always control your time and space? What is your why? What is it that you actually get inspired by? What got you motivated to start your education, to start your journey, to start your path? Because at the end of the day, the how, the asset allocation, still doesn't answer why. The what, which product, which strategy, it still doesn't answer why. And so you still need to start with that. You need to answer that and never forget that. There's a general process that we go through, and we'll probably do some more stuff on this. One of them is you have to have a commitment to learning. That is going to be your foundation as you go through your education. If you don't have a commitment to learning as your bedrock, then you're going to have a hard time. After you have a commitment to learning, then you also need the overall philosophy, kind of the theory and terms. Okay, so your commitment to learning is more important. Then you generally are going to learn theory and terms, like how things work, what they are, how you can approach them, that kind of stuff. And then you develop your skills. Okay, skills and execution. Now, skills and execution are a little bit different than theory and terms, because then we're talking about just like the actual button clicking. Once you understand the theory and terms and the strategies a little bit, then you go and develop your skills and execution. But the most important thing after all of that is that you still need a system or strategy that is many times your own. See, one thing that you're going to learn as you go through this is that you can copy the coach's trades. You can copy the mentor's trades. You can copy what they've done, and that's going to give you a leg up. Eventually, most traders end up having to develop their own style in some regard or the other, some form or fashion, system and strategy. Your commitment to learning is first. The theory and terms behind it, you learn as you go. Many times your first class or a book or a website can give you that. The skills and execution you have to practice. Many of you who are new may have challenges with Thinkorswim. You might have challenges with how you approach, your account. Do you know how to put in an order? If not, you might need to work on that. Never, ever lose your commitment to learning, though. Because the day that you give up on that, the rest of it is not going to have a solid foundation. Okay? It brings us back to our why. If we remember our why, we're going to be committed to learning regardless of how hard it is, regardless of how complicated it is, regardless of how intimidated you are in your first month. Guys, those are all natural feelings. They're even after, some of the volatility we've seen in the market in 2015, they're natural for somebody who's been doing this 5 or 10 years. Emotions are going to come in when you have conditions like that. People who remember their why are going to be more motivated and consistent with applying their systems. Why did you do this? Not how. How might be that you go in and you master your system. Okay? The what is simply what product do you trade. Okay? We do need to go through those different things. Now let's talk about this, because all of this is encompassed by the idea of why. Why exists outside of it. Okay? It really does. W-H-Y. Why exist outside of the systems, the skills, the theory, the commitment. It does directly apply to your commitment. These two things are tied together. So when you start with why, when you're motivated by why, when you remind yourself of why, every single day your commitment's going to be there, and it will domino yourself through the other challenges that you face. Now, let's also get into few of the other things, because you had quite a few questions, and we might have to tackle this in some other stuff as well, videos, or even you and I chatting, that kind of thing, Clubhouse, Coaches Show, whatever. But let's talk about the how. The how is important. Part of your asset allocation strategy that you're going to develop will be dependent, and why don't we call this slide just a general how. Okay, so there are a few things that you have to make a decision on. Are you going to trade which products? Okay, the different asset classes. So the capital markets. And there we are. So part of how might include which capital market you trade. But more importantly on how is the time. Okay, because which capital market you trade may be dictated by what time you trade. If you trade in the morning, you're going to have access to certain market cycles. You're going to need to make a decision. Are you going to day, swing, position, or invest? Or all of them? See, a lot of your question really gets down to the core of mentorship itself. Helping people develop those strategies that you just asked questions on, which are all very good questions, could take literally months of working with somebody one-on-one, 3 days of really intense application and training right there one-on-one to get actually just a system in, right, to do that kind of thing. So some of it will have to just be a spark here that gets the ball rolling for you to move in the right direction. But you will have to make a decision. How am I going to trade? How you're going to trade should come back to why as well. If your why is so that you can replace your income and not have to work, then trading all day long as a scalper doesn't reflect. Okay, you might be able to make money, but if you have to spend 10 hours a day in front of the market, you're just replacing one job for another, right? Now, if your why is just so that you can be home and you can be working from home, then maybe day trading is something viable. But you probably want to implement strategies and ways so that you don't have to be there all day long. If your why is to capitalize on bigger trends and moves in the market, then position trading and investing may come in. Now, by the way, after you decide when, you still have to decide on the how part of it. Are you going to do theta? We've talked a lot about these at different times. Delta. Or are you going to go wild card and trade something like Vega or Gamma? My recommendation for almost anybody is to learn how to do the most important things in trading. One of them is time decay. If you can't learn to take advantage of time decay in theta, then I think you've made a huge mistake. It doesn't mean that that's the only thing that you have to do, but you need to start there. Delta, to me, is the directional bias that you take. It is what you do from a directional standpoint. If you can read a chart, then you should trade some delta. I believe for a lot of beginners, a good guidance is, and this is more of the what, okay, and the what that you do. I live in the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time and 20% of the time. And what I mean by that is 80% of the time, you should work on your bread, what I call bread and butter strategies. Okay, 20% of the time, you should work on your these are phrases I use called your bag of tricks. So the question is, guys out there, guys and girls and women and men and everybody else out there listening, bag of tricks. Which strategies are your bread and butter? Are they covered call? Are they naked puts? Are they bull puts? Are they iron condors? You have to pick something. Okay? Every trader has different ones. What have you learned? You shouldn't put something in your bread and butter that you haven't learned. And you may be thinking, well, Tim, I haven't learned any of them yet, or I haven't learned enough of them to make a good choice. Then you still, going back to this phase, you might be at the phase where you're still learning theory and terms. See, you can't just get to systems and strategy right away. I love them. I think that every great trader that gets through the terms is going to be working on systems and strategies. But if you just go straight to the systems and strategies without thinking through the theory, the terms, developing the skills and the execution, you may not be ready for it. You may not even have the right experience to be able to be qualified to measure whether they're good systems or strategies. See, and that's why you have to go through the entire thing. Right now, if you're a brand new trader, your commitment to learning needs to be the strongest. Then you need to work on theory and terms. Then you need to work on skills and execution. Systems and strategy. Could you just plug in and use a mentor system? Sure. Could you just plug in and get the strategy rules? Sure. That's probably what a lot of you are doing right now. But to execute it perfectly, you have to build the other things out. Some traders work on this for years, guys. Some traders a couple months. There is no perfect timeline as to when it's going to be. If you're in your first 6 months of trading, just realize it's okay. You might still have to get a lot of these terms down. You still may be working on the commitment. You might be thinking, Tim, the market. I got to get this. I got to do this. Sure. Push consistently. But remember your why. That's what's going to keep you working hard and dedicated in the challenging times. So 80-20 rule, Christian, back to your original question, 80% of the time I focus on my bread and butter. 20% of the time I do bag of tricks stuff. What does that mean? Bread and butter are going to be volatility and theta strategies, period. The bag of tricks are going to be delta and gamma strategies. So for me personally, because I think volatility, might as well put those in here, down here somewhere. So theta and vega for me. Okay, and then the bag of tricks is going to be delta and gamma. Now here's the thing, like I said earlier, if you're new, you probably don't need to do vega and gamma. If you're new, you may not need 100 theta strategies. You might just need 3 or 4. Might be even the simplest ones. In some accounts and some risk tolerances, you may decide on certain theta strategies and get rid of the other ones. But you just got to start somewhere. Okay, your bag of tricks, your delta. Buy in a call or a put. That's a delta strategy. That's not the primary focus of a business for most people. Doing something directionally, like buying or selling a Forex pair. Probably a delta strategy. Not going to be the core of a bread and butter system for a theta or cash flow trader. Could delta be in the bread and butter? Sure. Some traders' asset allocation, some traders' choice on strategies is going to dictate that. For me, I choose to focus on these things. Now, I've been trading long enough to where my strategy list is probably a lot longer than what a new trader's even has to come close to. And that's okay. You don't have to do as many as I do. You just got to focus on something, because at the end of the day, when we start with why, it will be easier to do the hows and the whats. And then when we are doing them, we're always reminded, your system needs to reflect your why. Your why is what established your commitment to learning, allowed you to learn the theory and terms, reminded you that while you were struggling through that class and it wasn't clicking right away and you had to go back and watch it again and again and again and again, well, that's because you had a strong commitment to learning. Your skills and execution, that can only come through practice. You have to get into your accounts and put trades on. I talk to students all the time that tell me, Tim, I don't know how to do it. I'm not sure if I would even know why I was winning or losing. I said, that's okay. I'd rather have you put on 50 trades and be 100% confused than put on 0 trades and not try. Because until you've done some, you won't know what questions to ask. That's why we do paper trading. You build your skills and execution in practice, in paper trading, even in the face of confusion. Because that's how you will eventually start to carve out your systems and get your strategies in place. Okay, this has been a video from tackletrading.com. Guys, get in the game. Christian, I'll talk to you, I'm sure, soon, and we'll come up with a second part, follow-up to this, okay? Thanks for the questions. Appreciate it.
Get off the sidelines and take control of your financial future at www.tackletrading.com. Get in the game.